What if I told you that the smartest version of yourself is not someone you become, but someone you remember? For centuries, philosophers, mystics, and psychologists hinted at a hidden intelligence buried deep inside us. But only Carl Jung had the audacity to name it: the self. Not your ego, not your thoughts, not even your personality, but the totality of who you are, including the parts you've been taught to hide. This, Jung said, is where true genius lies. And here's the twist. This idea was so powerful and so threatening that society banned it in plain sight. 99.9% of people are conditioned to ignore it, suppress it, or mock it. Why? Because if you truly access the full power of your inner self, you would become unstoppable, uncontrollable, impossible to manipulate. Jung called this process individuation, the path of integrating your conscious and unconscious mind into one complete, awakened being. But let's be real, that sounds abstract. So let's translate it into something raw and usable. Here's the hack. You must confront your shadow. Not hide it, not deny it, but face it and learn from it. The shadow is every part of yourself you've rejected to fit in. Your anger, envy, shame, fear, even your secret dreams. But it also contains your hidden talents, your raw instincts, your genius-level insights. By integrating the shadow, you don't just fix yourself. You unlock a superintelligence that sees the world clearly, without filters, lies, or conditioning. This is the hack the world doesn't want you to know, not because it's mystical, but because it's liberating. Think about it. A society full of integrated, self-aware individuals couldn't be controlled by propaganda, consumerism, or fear. They wouldn't follow orders blindly. They'd question, innovate, lead. That's why this knowledge was buried. What parts of yourself have you buried to survive? What truths about your own mind have you been too afraid to face? This is your first key to becoming the smartest version of yourself. Not by addition, but by integration. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Imagine living your whole life in a house with hidden rooms. Rooms filled with forgotten memories, repressed emotions, and untapped brilliance. Now imagine you never even knew those rooms existed. That's how most people live. But the few who dare to explore these hidden rooms, those are the ones who touch genius. Here's the catch. When you first meet your shadow, it doesn't look like a gift. It looks like chaos. It feels like fear. You'll be tempted to turn away, to run, to say, "This can't be me." But that's exactly the test. Carl Jung understood this better than anyone. In fact, he voluntarily entered what he called his creative illness, a mental and spiritual crisis where he confronted the darkest parts of his psyche. Most people would call that madness. Jung called it transformation, and it worked. Out of that darkness came some of the most brilliant psychological insights in human history. Here's the loop. You must go into the chaos to find the pattern. You must dissolve to evolve. This is what makes the hack so rare. Most people don't have the courage. They want the glow without the fire. But if you can endure that inner fire, something magical happens. You gain a kind of clarity that feels almost supernatural. You start noticing patterns others miss. You sense people's intentions. You predict outcomes. You access what Jung called archetypal intelligence, the collective memory of the human species. In a world of surface-level thinkers, you begin to operate on a mythic level, strategic, symbolic, timeless. Are you willing to look in the mirror when it shows you your flaws? Are you willing to pass through the storm for the clarity on the other side? The smartest person in the world isn't the one with all the answers. It's the one who dares to ask the hardest questions. Most people think intelligence is about IQ data, speed. But Carl Jung believed the highest intelligence was wholeness, the ability to connect the inner and outer worlds, to see the universe not as fragments, but as a living system. This is the forbidden intelligence, the banned superpower. Why banned? Because wholeness is power. A person who sees the full picture can't be reduced to a cog in a machine. They think in symbols, they speak in paradox, they transcend the rules because they understand where the rules come from. This awakening begins when you realize your mind is not yours alone. It's a bridge between you and something ancient. Call it the collective unconscious. Call it source. Call it God. But once you tap into it, you no longer think, you know. Ideas come to you, patterns reveal themselves. You no longer chase success, you attract it. And suddenly, you're no longer trying to become the smartest person in the room. You simply are, because you've stopped playing their game and started mastering your own. The final key? Live in alignment with your deepest truth. Not the truth society gave you, not the truth your trauma taught you, but the truth yourself whispers in quiet moments. Most will ignore that voice, but if you follow it, it will lead you to a life of genius. Today, ask yourself not, how smart am I, but how whole am I? Reconnect the broken parts. Make peace with the shadow. Listen to the self. That's the true path to becoming the smartest person in the world. The smartest people in the world don't just think, they build. Not with bricks or code, but with inner structure. Mental architecture. Carl Jung taught that the human psyche isn't random. It's a precise, layered design. At the top sits the ego, the part of you that says, I, and tries to maintain control. Below that is the persona, the mask you wear to function in society. Then comes the shadow, the parts of you that don't fit the mask. Deeper still lies the anima or animus, the inner opposite. And finally, the self, the source of total integration. This inner structure is not a theory, it's a map. And if you understand it, you don't just grow, you ascend. But here's the twist. Most people are stuck in the upper levels. Ego, persona. They spend their lives polishing the mask, trying to be liked, accepted, successful. All the while they ignore the foundation, and then wonder why their mind collapses under pressure. You want to become the smartest person in the world? Start from the ground up. Excavate your unconscious, explore your dreams, decode your emotional patterns. Jung believed dreams weren't random nonsense. They were messages from the self, wrapped in symbolic code. Learn that language, and your inner world becomes a source of real-time intelligence. Here's the hack. Treat your mind like a kingdom. Don't just decorate the throne, fortify the walls, understand the terrain. Meet the forgotten rulers hiding in the dungeons of your psyche. Once you do, something radical happens. Life stops happening to you and starts happening through you. You no longer get triggered. You understand the root of the emotion. You don't react. You respond with precision. You're no longer pulled by the world. You pull it into alignment with your vision. What part of your inner architecture have you ignored? Are you ready to stop being a prisoner in your mind and become its architect? Every myth, every story, every religion tells the same tale. The battle between light and dark, good and evil, hero and villain. Jung realized the battlefield is within. Inside you, right now, are two forces at war, the self and the false self. One seeks growth, truth, meaning. The other craves comfort, validation, control. One whispers, become more. The other screams, stay safe. The greatest thinkers in history, from Socrates to Einstein, didn't avoid this inner war. They embraced it because they understood intelligence isn't the absence of conflict. It's mastery within it. The world doesn't tell you this. It sells you peace, ease, numbing. It teaches you to silence the war. But Jung said, the war is sacred. It's what creates transformation. The false self is built by trauma, conditioning, fear. It tries to keep you in the known, but genius lives in the unknown. And to reach it, you must rebel against your own programming. This rebellion is brutal. You'll question everything. Your beliefs, your goals, your identity. You'll feel lost, unstable, even insane. That's the point. That's the threshold. Cross it, and you'll discover a version of yourself you didn't know existed. fierce, focused, fearless. Not because fear disappeared, but because you stopped obeying it. Jung warned that this path isn't for everyone. It's for the few who'd rather be whole than good, who'd rather be true than safe. That's why this hack was banned. It makes you sovereign, and sovereign minds are dangerous to a world built on conformity. Look inside. Who's running the show? The self or the fear-based script you inherited? Choose your fighter. And remember, growth isn't quiet. It's a war. You've faced the shadow. You've rebuilt your mind. You've fought the inner war. Now what? Now you return. Not as who you were, but as who you truly are. This is the final phase in Jung's journey of transformation, the return of the self. The re-emergence of your core intelligence, your deepest, most authentic way of seeing, thinking, creating. And this return doesn't make you smarter for yourself. It makes you a force of evolution for the world. You begin to channel ideas, solutions, art, innovation, not from ego, but from essence. You become what Jung called the wounded healer, someone who turned pain into wisdom, fear into vision, and now helps others do the same. This is how the smartest people change the world, not by overpowering it, but by repatterning it. When you embody the self, you stop asking, "What can I get?" and start asking, "What can I bring?" Your very presence becomes an act of disruption. You don't fit into boxes, you melt them. You don't chase trends, you set them. People sense something different in you, a calm rooted in chaos, a fire that doesn't burn, a knowing that needs no words. You are now living mythically, strategically, wholly. But here's the beautiful paradox. The smarter you become through this process, the humbler you get. Because you realize intelligence isn't domination. It's integration. You're no longer seeking the crown. You've become the kingdom. The hack to becoming the smartest person in the world isn't found in books, schools, or strategies. It's found in the quiet, terrifying decision to know yourself fully, to live as your whole self. That journey is rare, but for those who take it, the world is never the same. To the untrained mind, life is random, coincidence, chaos. But to the awakened self, nothing is random, because everything speaks a language older than words, the language of symbols. Carl Jung devoted his life to decoding this hidden code. He discovered that symbols, from dreams, myths, art, religion, even brand logos, are the psyche's way of communicating truth beyond logic. They are the fingerprints of the unconscious mind. The smartest people in history weren't just analytical. They were symbolically literate. They saw the patterns behind events, the metaphors behind choices, the archetypes playing out in politics, business, love. Want to become one of them? Learn to read symbols, not just in books, but in your life. Every event, every challenge, every emotion you feel carries symbolic weight. A breakup isn't just heartbreak, it's initiation. Losing your job isn't failure, it's a death and rebirth. Feeling stuck isn't weakness, it's the cocoon phase before transformation. Jung warned, the soul speaks in images. If you ignore those images, you're not just blind, you're deaf to the deepest intelligence available to you. Here's the hack. Keep a dream journal. Meditate on recurring themes. Ask yourself not, what does this mean logically, but what does this represent symbolically? You'll start seeing layers of meaning in everything. A stranger's words, a song on the radio, a quote that hits you harder than it should. These are not accidents. They're calls from the self. And the more you listen, the more fluent you become. Life transforms from a flat story into a living myth, and you become the author. What symbols keep appearing in your life? What patterns are trying to wake you up? Intelligence isn't just the ability to think. It's the courage to interpret. We've been taught to run from emotion, to label it, numb it, suppress it. But Jung believed that emotion, especially pain, is not weakness, it's raw energy, and energy can be transformed. This was the basis of Jung's psychological alchemy. just like medieval alchemists tried to turn lead into gold. Jung taught us to transmute emotional lead, fear, guilt, rage, into the gold of wisdom, purpose, and genius. The smartest people don't avoid pain. They metabolize it. They feel it fully. They extract its message. They use it as fuel. Think of any great creator, visionary, or leader. Behind their brilliance is wound intelligence, the deep insights they harvested from their own suffering. Here's the loop. Every emotional breakdown holds the blueprint for a breakthrough. Every shadow contains the seed of a gift, but only if you're willing to feel it without running. Next time grief hits you, ask what it's purifying. Next time rage rises, ask what boundary is being violated. Next time anxiety appears, ask what unlived potential is being suppressed. Jung knew, emotions are not problems. They are sacred messengers from the unconscious. When you learn to alchemize them, your emotional world becomes your greatest mentor. Here's the true hack. Stop managing emotions. Start partnering with them. What pain have you been avoiding that might actually be your greatest source of intelligence? Genius isn't born from calm. It's born from transformed chaos. Let's get real. The reason this hack is hidden, the reason 99.9% of people never hear about individuation, the shadow, or the self, is not because it's hard to understand. It's because it's dangerous to the system. A truly intelligent person, Jung style, is uncontrollable. They don't follow trends. They don't bow to groupthink. They question authority, culture, media, even their own programming, and that makes them a threat. From childhood, you were trained to conform. School taught obedience. Society taught appearances. Religion taught guilt. Social media teaches performance. All of it designed to keep you fragmented, distracted, and afraid of your own mind. Because once you wake up, you stop consuming and start creating. You stop obeying and start leading. You stop fearing and start remembering who you are. This is why most education systems ignore Jung, why mainstream psychology diluted his ideas, why spiritual systems borrowed his terms but buried his methods. Because Jung didn't just offer therapy, he offered liberation. He gave you a path to sovereignty, not just intellectually, but spiritually, emotionally, existentially. And the truth is, this path can't be given. It must be taken. Chosen. You must choose to unplug from the collective dream. You must choose to stand alone, to think deeply, to go inward even when the world demands your attention outward. That's the mark of true genius. Not flashy intellect, but quiet sovereignty. Stop asking for permission to be wise. Reclaim what was always yours. The forbidden intelligence, the Jungian hack, the right to know yourself completely. There comes a point in every awakening when the road splits. One path leads back to comfort, where you pretend not to know what you now know. The other path? It feels like death. Carl Jung warned that becoming your true self isn't a glow-up. It's a funeral, the death of the persona, the collapse of the false life you built to please others, the unraveling of everything you thought was you. And that's terrifying. No one tells you that the smartest person in the room is often the most grieved. Not because they're broken, but because they've had to bury what no longer serves them. Old beliefs, old dreams, old identities. Jung called this the Negredo phase, blackness, the dark night of the soul, the moment when everything falls apart, and you have to decide whether to return to illusion or keep walking toward truth. Most turn back, but those who go forward, they emerge reborn. Not in image, but in essence. Here's the paradox. True genius doesn't feel like becoming more. It feels like becoming less illusion, less ego, less noise, until all that remains is clarity. This is why so few walk the path. Because transformation doesn't just give you knowledge. It demands you die to who you were. And in that death, your highest intelligence is born. What part of you is clinging to an expired identity? Are you willing to let it die so something greater can live? Genius doesn't bloom in the light. It's born in the dark. We are all living a story. The question is, Whose? Your parents gave you one. School gave you another. Culture, media, trauma. They all write lines in the script. But Carl Jung believed something radical. Your greatest intelligence is unleashed the moment you reclaim authorship of your own myth. Not a fantasy. A myth, a symbolic life journey that gives meaning to your existence. He believed we each carry a unique archetypal destiny, a soul pattern, a story the universe has never told before and never will again. But most people never live it. Why? Because they're trapped in someone else's plot. Jung saw that true freedom, the kind that unlocks creative genius and psychological mastery, comes from aligning your life with your myth. That means knowing what archetype you're meant to embody. Are you the seeker, the rebel, the creator, the healer, the sage? When you live out of alignment with your myth, you feel bored, anxious, restless. Life seems dull, repetitive, meaningless. But when you live in alignment, life feels enchanted. Challenges become quests. Pain becomes fuel. You move with purpose, power, and pattern. Here's the hack. Reclaim your myth. Journal your life not as events, but as chapters. What chapter are you in now? Who were the villains? What was the wound? What is the transformation? When you see your life mythically, you begin to direct it. You stop drifting and start designing. And that's when genius kicks in. You're no longer just reacting to life. You're orchestrating it. What myth are you living, and is it really yours? Take the pen back, because the smartest people in the world don't just read great stories, they live them. Most people think reality is something you observe, something you endure. Carl Jung shattered that illusion. He believed the outer world is a mirror of the inner world, and that by transforming your psyche, you begin to transform reality itself. Sound mystical? Maybe, but it's backed by quantum physics, ancient mysticism, and cutting-edge psychology. Consciousness shapes perception, and perception shapes experience. Once you understand this, you no longer play the game of life. You code it. You're not here to be smart by the world's standards. You're here to be original. You're here to become a conduit for ideas that haven't yet entered the world. That requires you to stop consuming and start creating from the source, your own integrated self. This is what makes you unstoppable. You've walked the shadow, fought the inner war, read the symbols, transmuted the pain, killed the false self, found your myth. Now you become a conscious creator. This doesn't mean perfection, it means alignment. It means creating from your core, your values, your truth, your deep vision, not trends, fear, or imitation. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And who you truly are is not just smart. You are a force of nature, a myth in motion, a living intelligence that bends reality, not with effort, but with essence. Don't just seek knowledge, seek integration. Don't just gather facts, become a vessel of truth. Don't just become smart, become so whole, the world begins to organize itself around you. This is the forbidden hack. And now, it's yours. After all the inner battles, the shadow work, the deconstruction of your false self, and the integration of your deepest intelligence, what remains? Silence, stillness, simplicity. Carl Jung knew that the final stage of genius isn't loud. It's not about domination or accolades. It's not about becoming something grand. It's about returning to the present moment, whole. You begin to see that the world doesn't need more experts. It needs more authentic humans, fully alive, fully awake, fully themselves. You no longer seek to be the smartest person in the room. You become the room. Your presence is the intelligence. Your awareness is the wisdom. Your calm is the revolution. You realize now that the ultimate hack, the one banned from 99.9% of humanity, is not a trick or a system. It's a return to yourself, to your soul, to your source. And from that place, life becomes incredibly clear. Not easy, but clear. You act from alignment, Speak from truth. Create from vision. Love without needing. Lead without forcing. This is the end of the path and the beginning of everything real. So if you've made it here, you're not just seeking intelligence anymore, you're living it. Intelligence isn't what you have. It's what you become when you stop pretending and start remembering. You are not just a thinker. You are not just a dreamer. You are a conscious creator, and the world needs you. Unleashed. If this message shook something loose in you, good. That was the point. Now it's your move. Like, share, comment. But more importantly, start the journey. Reclaim the parts of you that were silenced. Face the shadows. Live your myth. And remember, the most forbidden hack to becoming the smartest person in the world was never out there. It was always you. So go inward, get free, and lead from the self. Let's build a world run by the awakened, one genius at a time.